Good day, everyone. How are you on this fabulous, fabulous day? Although it is about to storm here. So if you all of a sudden hear some thunder in the background, then you'll know what that is. But hi, I'm Bernadette Boas of Ball of Fire Coaching. And we are a coaching, training, and speaking practice who serve corporate professionals, team leaders, and hiring managers to really help turn their team members, turn their managers into powerhouse leaders. And I love taking individuals like yourselves through the process of coaching, whether that's formally or in this situation. It's an opportunity for you really to see and understand how coaching can support you. So I like to, even though oftentimes this is one to zero. Pretty much, I'm not working one-on-one with someone, is what I'm trying to say. But at the same time, what I like to do is with the questions and the situations that have been given to me, and if you are watching this and come in at any point in time, you can also leave your own comment of a question or a situation you're dealing with. And I will keep an eye out for it and be sure to address it for you while we're here. But even if we're not here live, you can always post those, and or 99% of the comments that I get always come through LinkedIn. So you can always reach out to me on there as well. But what I do is I take your questions and your situations that you're dealing with. And if you're able to join me, that's awesome. And if not, I use this power hour to provide you tips and strategies, sometimes tough love. But I also try to model, going back to the conversation earlier, I try to model what coaching is all about. And for me, and for Ball of Fire Coaching, it's all about asking you questions based on whatever it is you might say to me, and really trying to understand what your words, what your emotions, what your beliefs, what your thoughts are actually saying. Because oftentimes, someone will come to me with a question or a situation that they're dealing with, and they want to keep it kind of really black and white. But at the same time, in order to really help you and to really support you in breaking through whatever it is that you might be dealing with, we have to get down underneath the cover, so to speak. So a series of questions will allow you to dig. And what my real goal is for you to answer your own question, solve your own problem, come up with your own decision, understand what it is that's really driving you. And if I can get you there, then that's a success for me and for you. So it's a win-win for everybody. But that's what we do here in Ball of Fire Coaching during our Power Hour coaching, and everything that we do, including Shedding the Bitch Radio and TV, which happens every Tuesday at noon Eastern time. So be sure to check out all of that. And at the same time, you can always check us out at balloffirecoaching.com. And stay tuned. I've been wanting to share this. Stay tuned real quickly, in the near future, as we are rolling out a brand new website, but it's still under Ball of Fire Coaching. All right. Okay. So let me highlight what it is that we're going to talk about today, and then I'll take each one of them and drill into them. This was a gentleman who reached out to me a few weeks ago, and actually he had a whole other situation he wanted to talk about. But then in our conversation, he brought up two questions: how do I start a podcast, and how do I write a book? Now, I do not consider myself in any way, shape, or form a writing coach or a podcast coach. However, I have had my podcast for 12 years, and I have written multiple pieces of content, including my book, Shedding the Corporate Bitch, as well as a screenplay, Confessions of a Bitch, and a number of other type of publications. So I'm very, very familiar from the user perspective. And that's what I'm going to share with all of you. And I shared with him. So if you are someone who is looking to start a podcast or looking to write a book, then this is definitely a conversation you're going to want to stay with, and or you can always watch it post our live broadcast. All right. Again, if you come into this and we're in the middle of one question or challenge, feel free to still post your comments of whatever it is you might need some help on. And I'll be sure to finish the question and then get to yours before we were to wrap up. All right. So let's get into it. All right. So how to start a podcast. Again, I want to model coaching. So even though I said I'm not a podcast coach, and I'm going to have a recommendation for you and for anyone who does want to start a podcast as to a coach that can support you. Again, I will model coaching through even these questions. Being that coaching is all about asking questions. The first question I would ask anyone when it comes to starting a podcast is why. So that's what you need to think about first is, why do you want to start a podcast? Well, because everybody's doing it. Well, that's not a good reason. Well, it's the latest thing, and I want, publicity, and I want to get my brand out there, whatever the case might be. Those last couple of comments are good ones, but I need you to keep asking yourself why. Okay, so I want to get my name out there. Why? I want to build my business. Why? I want to help and serve as many people as I can. Ooh, now we're getting somewhere. Okay, why? I'm really passionate about helping them solve their problems around X, Y, and Z. Why? Because I know people and I've experienced it myself going through it, so forth and so on. So you want to just keep asking yourself why until you really get a good grounding on that why. That why will serve you tremendously as you go forward. So as you're asking yourself these questions as well, I want you to be taking out a journal and scribbling them down, or in your phone, however you might do it, on a recorder. I used to do that a lot, or even on a video. But don't lose sight of it, because as you're drilling into asking yourself over and over again, why, not only are you going to find possibly the mission that you have for that podcast, but also the real heart of why it is you're going to devote yourself into developing a podcast. Because like anything, it sounds, everyone's doing it, so it must be easy. Everyone's doing it, so it must be inexpensive. Everyone's doing it, so it must not take a lot of time. Everyone's doing it, so it must be all of those things for me. And that's not the case. Having a podcast, even as you build your podcast and you bring on people, it still requires a big commitment. Okay. But we're going to get to that in a second. So the first thing would be really understand why you want to start a podcast and get that all written down and get grounded in that why. Okay. Then I really want you to be thinking about, what are your goals and your desired outcome for having this podcast? People have a lot of different reasons for why they do what they do, whether it's a podcast or it's a book or start their own business or wanted a promotion in their corporate job, or why they want to move from one company to another. There's always goals and desired outcomes as to why they're doing what they're doing. So I really want you to be thinking about, what are your goals and your desired outcomes? So very similar to the why, some of your goals could be, I want to get my name out there. I want to become an influencer. I want to build my brand. I want to build my business. I want to, become a, not only a local, but a national or a global brand. I want to generate revenue. I want it to be a moneymaker for me. I want it to be somewhat passive, if you want to look at it that way. I mean, there is devoted work that you have to do real time, so to speak. But then if you are getting sponsors and ads, advertising, and some other things down the road, not setting expectation you're going to get them immediately, then it could be passive, where you're getting income as you are building your podcast. So just along with your why do you want to do a podcast, because not everyone should be doing podcasts. Not everybody wants to do a podcast. Not everyone's made to do a podcast. And what I mean by that, because I'm asked that a lot, is where we're going to go next, and that is commitment. Again, it might sound easy when you hear that people have, well, they have once a week, or they have once every couple of weeks podcast. That's not too difficult. Doesn't sound too time consuming. Again, I've had mine for 12 years. And it certainly isn't as time consuming today as it was 12 years ago, but it didn't, necessarily happen overnight to where it wasn't time consuming. So your commitment has to be there. Your commitment has to be in not only putting a microphone in front of you and doing what you want to do, but it has to be into really understanding the business of it, really understanding the structure of it, really understanding the mechanics of it. So you have to become a student of something that you haven't done before, and therefore you need to have a commitment. Now, the commitment also is not just knowledge or information or research, and it's not even just of your time, but then you do have to make a commitment to money. And what I mean by that is, of course, everyone knows what money spending means, but not only in the equipment. There are things you have to buy, and we're going to get to that in a second, but I'll say right now, the mechanics of it is minuscule to all the foundational aspects of starting a podcast that we're talking about. Understanding your why, understanding your goals, making a commitment, because without these things initially, then you're going to go and you're going to spend money on equipment, you're going to spend money on a platform, and you're going to get, a microphone in front of you on a certain schedule that you come up with, but then the commitment's going to waver because you're not firm on your why, your goals, your outcome, and that commitment. Okay. So why, goals, and outcomes, your commitment. And then what I want you to do is I want you to think about, what is it that you want to say, and why do you want to say it? So you recognize why is always popping up. So what is it you want to say? When I started my podcast, actually it was internet radio 12 years ago. When I started mine, my whole why was to promote my book that I was in the process of writing, not even anywhere near publishing. I just recognized that the minute I started writing the book, I would want to start creating excitement about it, and I would want to start getting it out there. So I said, this internet radio thing is starting to come on, and I love to talk. So why don't I start sharing my story via internet radio? So that was my why. Okay. And my, what do I want to say, which is what you have to answer for yourself, was everything that I was going to be putting in my book, which was my story about shifting from being rich to rich. And therefore there was, just as I was writing it, there was a lot of stories, a lot of lessons, a lot of best practices, a lot of tips and advice that I wanted to be able to share with others to help them not do what I did. So think about and really get grounded again, not only on your why and your goals and your outcomes and your commitment, but also what is it that I'm going to talk about? And do I have enough content, enough knowledge, enough interest, enough passion about this subject that would carry a podcast? Now, you could certainly do a short serial podcast, let alone one that goes on for 12 years like myself. So just get clear. Okay, what am I going to talk about? What's my topic? All right. And because we all have something to say. We do. It's just like writing a book. We all have something to say. But just get really clear on what that is. Because I would say 6 out of 10, whether it's corporate or entrepreneurial individuals that come to talk with me, and we happen to get into this area of either books or podcasts, they'll always be like, well, I don't, I have nothing to say. What do I have to say? We all have something to say. You just need to figure out what that is for you, because what that is for you is not necessarily what it is for somebody else. Now, moving on from that is, once you have something that you think you want to talk about, then go verify it, go validate it, go talk to other people and see if this is a topic that they would be interested in hearing about. And if it's not them, who do they think would be interested in hearing about? Because you don't only want to kind of say, oh, I want to talk about, I'm looking at this statue over here, and it's too far away to pick it up, but it looks like a Golden Globe statue. If you all of a sudden are like, oh, well, I want to talk about TV or celebrities or, the acting process. Well, awesome. Are there people out there that want to hear about it? And if they do want to hear about it, what is it that they want to hear about? So I'm currently, which is what I would tell you to do as well, is I'm currently holding, I guess I would call it, interviews with about a dozen corporate executives. And I want the people that are in the roles, not the coaches or consultants that work with them, but actual business executives. And I'm talking to them about leadership. And I'm talking about what is it that keeps them up at night when it comes to them leading or having, their people turn and transform into leaders. And I'm doing this with a series of questions in order to use it to determine where I'm taking my podcast as I go forward. Because my business has changed directions. I mentioned my website. That's, and it's all have to do with each other. And at the same time, I'm recognizing that the topics I want to talk about and I want to get expert input on is changing as well. So Shedding the Bitch Radio and TV will even take a shift over the next six months into a different area. So get out there and grab, 10, 12, 15 people to talk to about your topic. All right. So once you have your why do you want to do a podcast? You have a clear understanding of that. You understand your goals and your outcomes that you're looking for, the commitment that you're willing to put into it. You then, kind of decide on the topical area. I'll call it an area because you might start with one thing and then kind of drill down or expand, and then go out and do research and talk to people about what it is that they want to hear about and what they would be engaged in and what they would, go searching for, or if it pops up in their feed, what would draw them in, what kind of topics. All right. Then I mentioned format briefly when I said you could either do a short serial podcast, meaning maybe it's 6 episodes, 8 episodes. The genre of real life murder mysteries is huge. And I love them. And, they're anywhere from, 6 a season, and maybe it's for a couple seasons. Maybe they're covering one type, one murder situation. Maybe it's one serial podcast, but each episode is a different scenario, whatever the case might be. So think about your format as well. Now, format goes beyond topic, whether or not it's, going to be short-term, long-term. It also involves your the format of, is it I don't know what the industry term is, because again, I'm not a podcasting coach. I'm just a 12-year-long podcaster. So I don't know what the proper word is, but you can either be single on a microphone just talking, or you could have an interview, or you can even have what I'll call a hybrid, which I'm even looking into for our show. And that is you have a topic, you have an expert on that topic, and then you wrap up with your viewpoint or your position on that topic. So there's a whole variety. You can have a roundtable format where you have multiple guests. And some could be serious, some could be, entertaining, some could be comical, some could be research, whatever the case might be. So just, really think about what the format is. Now, getting back to commitment, but it has to do with format as well. You want to think about, okay, so what is the schedule that I'm going to have? Because again, this is something that once you, kind of put it out there and you make a commitment to, well, I'm going to do it weekly every Tuesday at noon Eastern time, like we have for Shedding the Bitch radio and TV. Or I'm going to do it, every day. There's podcasts out there that air every day. Some do every couple weeks, some do once a month. So really think through all the different aspects of the format of your podcast. At the same time, also think about, am I going to go live, or am I going to go recorded, or am I going to go hybrid? So again, hybrid I use often because I'm often finding myself doing the hybrid. So our show is both me individually on the first Tuesdays every month doing a Ask Why, or I'm sorry, Ask Me Bernadette. And so basically very similar to this actually, where guests can come and either chat or come online and, ask any question that they want to ask about. And then the balance of the month is with expert guests. Some of them are live, majority of them are recorded. And we're moving toward more 100% will be recorded. So kind of think through too what you want to do there. Because of course, if you pre-record and then you distribute, that's typically what podcast is. So there's no right or wrong there. Just kind of consider what it is for you. Okay. And then quite honestly, after you've done pretty much all that planning of your podcast show, there certainly is what I call the mechanics. I mentioned it earlier. There certainly is, okay, so what am I going to call my show? What's the artwork going to look like? What equipment do I need? Now, going back to format, I should have mentioned, you could do just podcast audio, or you can do what we do here in Ball of Fire Media, which is my media company, is we do both audio and video. So we broadcast through all the podcast streaming services, but then we also put that video cast over into YouTube, and then I share it elsewhere as well. So that would be part of your format that you want to decide on. But getting back to mechanics. So then it's not only the name and the artwork, but it's the equipment, from the microphone to the lights to the editor or the sound system that you use. And again, I don't do all my other stuff, so all the mechanical stuff. So I don't know all the buzzwords, but someone else does. So and that's all you need to worry about. And then do you have to hire people? I have an assistant who handles a lot of mine. I have a video editor that handles mine. I have a YouTube SEO individual that handles that. So who do you need on your team? Now, I will say for the first no, that's not true. I would say for the first couple of years, I didn't have anyone helping me. And then I started adding on, someone to go and find guests, go and, manage the guests, go and do all the work until I actually have to get onto the show, and then all the post work. So just expect that it will happen over time. Okay. And that's the support. So right now, for anyone that is asking, at least asking me, regarding how to start a podcast, focus on that first part that we talked about. Why do you want to do a podcast? Get really, really clear. Keep asking yourself why. Once you answer it, go, well, why do I want that? Or, and then when you answer that, why do I want that? When you answer that, why is that important? Just keep drilling into that why. Come up with your goals and your desired outcomes. Come up with your commitment. Make it solid to everything, to the topic, to the schedule, to the frequency, to the format, whatever the case might be. Just get committed, because if you're not committed, grounded by that why and your goals and desired outcomes, then you're gonna start it and stop it, or you're never gonna start it to begin with. Okay. So, and then you can move on to, all right, so once you have those things solid, you can then move on to, all right, let me go talk to people about the topic. Let me go figure out the mechanics, that kind of thing. Get grounded on that first part, because that's everything. Everything else is kind of the how to. The front part is really the why that's going to get you, and ensure that you're successful. Okay. All right. Let's see. So that is that. I have no water in front of me and my throat is beginning to dry up. All right. So very similar. So this could be quick. Very similar to how to start a podcast is how to write a book, but there are nuances here. And again, I am not a writing coach. Want to put that out there once again. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I have to go back to this. I mentioned that I wanted to give you a recommendation to a podcast coach should you need one. And he comes highly recommended through me. And I have firsthand experience in having him to be my coach for our show. So, and that's why you're going to start seeing changes as we go forward. So the program is called Grow the Show. So if you look up Grow the Show, but his name is Kevin Shemlin, CHEMDLIN. Someone can verify that for me, but just look up Kevin Shemlin of Grow the Show. If not, then just DM me and I can give you the information in regards to him and his program. And it is growtheshow.com, and you can go out there. All right. I get nothing for that, but if you do happen to reach out to him and you do happen to be part of his program, mention me. He might have a referral program. I'm not really sure, quite honestly. But at the same time, I do highly recommend him should you want to work with someone on your podcast. And quite honestly, like we're going to talk about with the book, the best thing you could do from the very beginning is get coaching around it. It'll save you a lot of time. I mean, think about it. I've been doing mine for 12 years and I only just hired a coach. Okay. For this now new change that we're going into. Not to say, I mean, the show was always consistent and successful all those years. At the same time, I was, changing direction in all aspects of my business and my life. And I thought it would be beneficial to accelerate progress having a coach. So check him out. All right. So how to write a book. Like I said, similar to how to start a podcast. Get grounded on your why. Why do you want to write a book? Now, in this particular case, I'll give you a straight up example that kind of took my breath away. I was doing research on the ideas that I had when I realized I wanted to write a book. And this is going back to 2010. So I started reaching out to the experts that were in the field. And I reached out to one in particular, and he was renowned for being the publisher, being a more of a kind of self-publisher hybrid, but at the same time, a publisher. So I got him on the phone, was only going to have like 10 minutes with him. And so the first question he asked me is why? Why do you want to write a book? Is it for as a business card? Because oftentimes books and even podcasts now are used for business cards by speakers and consultants and coaches. So is it for a business card? Is it for branding, building your brand and getting it out there? Is it for influence? And nowadays, influencers, people who want to be influencers, or is it for money? And it definitely wasn't for money for me back then. For my book, it was definitely for, or is it to help others? And so mine was, I wanted to build a brand. I wanted to get, I wanted to help as many people as possible, prevent going down the path that I went down. And what was the other one? And yes, for influence and as a business card for my coaching and consulting that I was doing at the time and my speaking. And he said, okay. He said, I'm glad you didn't say revenue. I said, why? And he said, well, two things. One, he says only about 2% of the books ever make money. The average number, these numbers might have changed. I probably should have looked it up. But the average number of books that anyone self-publishes and sells is roughly around 250, 225, 250. Back then, I think it was even like 167 for some reason is popping in my head. He says, typically, people aren't living off of revenue that they're making from their books. And he says the other reason why I asked, so then the next question he asked me is, do you have, how much was it? Do you have, I want to say it was $150,000. Do you have $150,000? I said, excuse me? and I said, why? And again, my math could be wrong. And he said, well, because if you want to get published by a big publisher and get into bookstores, what's going to be required is you putting up the money. No, not up the money. Okay. It would be for the minimum run that a publisher does is 10,000 books. And any of the books that, if you do not sell more than 10,000, any books that go unsold, you have to buy them. So say, you get a publisher, they're going to commit to 10,000 books. You only sell 1,000 books. That's 9,000 books then that you owe them for printing. And a book, gosh, nowadays with the cost of paper, I don't know, but even say the books are $250 to print, so that would be $250, 9,000, so that would be roughly 18, 20,000. But at the 10,000, I guess that, yeah, if you didn't sell any, and therefore there was 10,000, it's far less than 150,000, but you get the point. So, so he said, you just need to make sure that you have, you're committed. I said, okay. So we talked about the why, we talked about the goals and outcomes, and then again, the commitment. Now the commitment here is pretty much the same. What is going to be your writing schedule? How many pages a day, a week, a month are you going to write? What is that timeline? In this case, I also would suggest to anyone based on my experience is if you wanted to get formally published, that has a much longer time span, because one, you have to send out query letters, you have to, get under contract with a publisher, and then the publisher has a certain timeline that they're going to require, you sending them drafts and then providing you edits and then you rewriting and then re-editing, and it's just this cycle before they actually go and publish. So if you're expecting that you want something out by, let's say, the beginning of 2023, and it's July, and you want to get published, that timeline's not going to work. So you want to be realistic and make sure that you've looked into all of that and then commit to, what it is that you're going to do. Now, even at the time, 12 years ago, when I was writing and publishing the book, self-publishing was kind of just on the uptick. It was still not popular because you couldn't get into bookstores and people didn't take you seriously if you self-published. I didn't want to self-publish. I didn't want to also formally publish because I wanted to get in bookstores, but I wasn't looking for that timeline. And so I eventually did my homework and did my research and found what I call hybrid. And that is those imprints, publishers, who do all the same things that a formal publisher will do, but they work at a much expedient rate. But yet again, nowadays, self-publishing is very popular and very kind of normal, Amazon and whatnot, to where self-publishing is also a different option for you. So there's self-publishing, hybrid, and formal publishing. You just need to research and look into and commit, because that commitment um, will be altered based on the type of publishing you want done. So you need to do that sooner than later. Okay. And then you decide on things like, very much like the podcast, you decide on, what am I going to write about? What's the type of book I'm going to write? Am I writing a nonfiction? Am I writing a fiction? Am I doing a child's book? Am I doing a young teen book? Am I doing, adult book? Whatever the case might be. And again, all of those have different aspects to them. Do I need a graphic artist to be involved from the very beginning? If it's a certain type of book. Okay. And then like I did with the podcast, I'd highly recommend that you get some team members on board at the very, very, very beginning. Two, I would highly suggest is an accountability coach to keep you on track to that commitment that you've made. When it comes to writing, as many writers will tell you, it's a very lonely world, and it's one that is easily dragged out with procrastination or going blank and just not feeling creative for a certain amount of time. And as a matter of fact, she wasn't my coach, but I had hired an editor from the very beginning, because I wanted to be sure that as I was writing, I was sharing it with her, and I was, being as rich in my writing as possible. So she was doing some instruction for me as well. But so she had noticed that as I got into like the middle part of my writing or my story for the book, that I wasn't writing. So she calls me and she's like, "What's going on? I haven't received any pages lately." I'm like, "Sure, I'm writing. I'm busy, 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 busy." And she's like, "No, you're not." So she actually had me meet her down the street. She is in Atlanta along with me. And she had me meet her at the Chick-fil-A down the street from me. And so I did. And she's like, "So what's going on? Why aren't you writing?" And I kind of dropped my head and I said, "Well, I'm at a certain point of my story that is uncomfortable. And I'm not sure if I want to share it. And I don't know how to share it if I do share it." And so forth and so on. And she's like, "Well, wasn't it the point of you doing this was for you to purge and you to, what I call, excavate your soul, and you to share your story? Wasn't that the purpose?" And I said, "Yes." She's like, "Then just write." And she goes, "Let me figure out, how you might spill it. Let me, figure out how we need to put it back together again, but just write." So if you can get a coach especially from an accountability perspective, but then also get an editor, get somebody who can be cleaning it up or making it, enriching it, and giving you guidance on what, how you need to share whatever it is that it is. Even if it's a business book, get somebody on board that can help you structure it as you go. It'll save you a lot of pain. Let me tell you, it will save you a lot of pain. And then lastly, what I would say, even somewhat different than the podcast, is then just start writing. Just start writing. Even as you're doing the work, there's a difference between someone saying, "Well, academically, I want to write a book." Not academically, school-wise, but, just practically, maybe is the word. I am a coach, I'm a consultant. I do have a story to tell. Have had an experience that would help other people. And therefore I'm going to write it, and I need to write it. And this will be my one book, and then I'll be done. Then there's others who writing is a calling. I mean, it's like a thirst that needs to be satisfied. So in either case, just write. Even if it's just going to be one book that you need to kind of get out of your, heart and mind, and you're never going to write again, fine. Just get it written. Because the biggest challenge people have is getting it done. There's a lot of dusty manuscripts out there. that are, a third way completed, sometimes even completed. And yet, the insecurities, the fear of, failing or succeeding get in the way. And the next thing you know, they even stop at the point of taking it further to get it published. That's why having people around you to support you through it is a huge, huge value and benefit to your writing process. And let's not even it's not even a huge benefit to your writing process as much as it is a huge benefit to you achieving that goal and that desire that you have for yourself, because that's what it's about. Again, the writing is the mechanics. It's the how to. The fact that you have something that can help other people and that you want to share it is what's key and what you need to follow your heart on. Now I do want to address something that just popped in my head, actually. So another situation too is when people are questioning if they have anything to say. And I went through this myself. I knew I had something to say. So Shedding the Corporate Bitch, Shifting from Bitch to Rich, my book, is all about my experience, my journey, of the point of which I was fired by my mentor 12 years in late 2007. And then, the months and years that then I spent excavating my soul and realizing that I was this nasty individual, and then how I overcame it. So I absolutely knew that I had something to say. The kicker is, once someone gets to that point where they know they have something to say, the next sabotager that's out there, the next bitch, as I call them in my world, the next bitch that's out there, waiting to just kind of, drill holes in everything that you've ever wanted and desired. And that is, you don't think anybody else would want to read it, hear it, see it, whatever the case might be. So I was having this kind of imposter syndrome going on within me as I'm writing my book. And this is going back to 2010. And I decided to take my sister with me, and we went to a writing conference out in Las Vegas. It was a day and a half. It was going to have like 25 speakers / authors there, and they were going to be sharing everything and anything that they know about their writing process. And then of course they're going to try to sell you on their package. So I'm sitting there and I'm listening, and I was dealing with I have something to say, that was taken care of. I was dealing with this issue of, why would anyone want to read it, let alone pay for it? And so I'm sitting there and I'm listening to them, and my sister's with me. And I don't recall which speaker it was that said it. But one of the speakers gets up and basically he says, for any one of you who are holding back and not sharing and telling your story or selling your story via book, coaching, whatever, he said, you're doing a disservice to the people who need to hear it. And, that took a minute for that to seep in. And he repeated it. He said, you are robbing others from learning what you've learned and overcome if you don't go and not only write your book, but get it published and sell your book. And then, monetize it along with speaking or coaching or whatever the case might be. And so I sat there with that, and my sister looked at me and, wondering why I looked so perplexed. And I kind of shared that back to her. I said, did you get that? And she's like, no, because it wasn't a conference for her, but she was there to support me. And she said, no. And I said, well, he said that, I am being selfish. Oh gosh, I'm sorry. A couple of my dogs are in the house and causing chaos. And I said to her, that startled me. And I said to her, yeah, he just said that I'm being selfish if I don't write, publish, and even sell, monetize my book, my experiences, my lessons. And she said, well, you are. I was like, you're kidding. And she's like, no, you would be. She's like, if you know you can help somebody else, isn't that why you're writing your book? So why would you not actually put it out there, monetize it, and then even, kind of sell services and coaching and speaking, and training to help people overcome and do what you went through. And that in itself has stayed with me ever since. When I'm ever doubting myself when it comes to, what I'm doing from a business perspective, monetizing perspective, pricing perspective, value, worth perspective, I think about that experience and that situation. So I'll leave that with you, because whether it's starting a podcast or it's writing a book, you definitely have something to say, and there are people that need to hear it, read it, or see it. It's also why I went on to not only have the radio, have the book, have my coaching, but even work to turn my my book and my story into a screenplay, a film. So there's a whole lot of different mediums that you could be using to share your story. But first, do that foundational excavating of your soul, as I call it, and really figure out your why, your goals and your outcomes and your desires, the commitment you're going to make to it. And then everything else will fall into place. Trust me, it will. And if you need any support in any way, shape, or form, even if it comes to me referring you to someone to help you with your book or to help you with your podcast, but if you need, support in any other way as well, especially those corporate professionals, HR leaders, or team managers out there that are looking to, transform themselves and their team members into powerhouse leaders, then reach out and schedule some time with me and let's talk. All right. But I'll be back here next Thursday at 1:00 Eastern time. And in the meantime, you could be posting your stories, comments, or questions out on any of our platforms. LinkedIn is the most popular one. So Bernadette Boas at LinkedIn. You can link in with me there. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel. Be sure to do that. You can follow us on Facebook as well. And I will keep an eye out and get with you directly. I won't even wait until we're back here next Thursday at 1:00 Eastern time. Reach out and ask for the help that you need and deserve. All right. Okay. I'm going to go see what happened with my puppies over there. Go to balloffirecoaching.com. Let us know what we could do for you. And I'll look forward to seeing you next week. Have a rich week. Bye, everyone.